Tiffany from Oakwood, where she teaches our BOSU class.
All right.
And spin, and I'm sure a number of you know her from Oakwood and also from the Bay Club.
Yeah.
And boy, do we hate to miss that class, because then it makes it that much more difficult the next week. So, this just came in, and it is Tiffany Hoover has been acting in the San Francisco Bay Area for over 25 years. She holds 2 degrees in theater, a BA from Santa Barbara, and a master's from UC Davis.
Go Aggies! Go Gauchos!
In addition, Tiffany completed a Master's of Theological Studies from the Graduate Theological Union's Franciscan School. Tiffany has also enjoyed serving as an officiant for weddings and memorial services. In addition to her acting career, she also works as a fitness professional. Tiffany's experiences and education have fueled her desire to marry her passions for theater and theology by writing and performing biographical monologues for strong women of faith.
So we ask everybody, if you don't mind, to turn your cell phones off.
And afterwards, there'll be a Q&A.
Yeah.
I am honored that you have decided to hear about my life. It is very interesting. Well, I was born March 28th, 1515 in Avila, Spain. When I was about 5 years old, my brother, Rodrigo, and I were diligently reading the lives of the saints. We were fascinated by the sacrifices these men and women made, particularly the intense and gruesome ways in which they died. One day, I turned to Rodrigo and I said, "Come, let us be off to the land of the Moors, declare our Christianity, and beg them to cut off our heads." Now, the Moors, they were North African Muslims, not welcome in our Catholic-controlled country. We snuck out of the house with the intention of becoming saints. Now, the Moor country was just past our city walls that were built to keep out these Moorish invaders. Well, before we got very far, Uncle found us and brought us home. Father was furious, and we were so disappointed how desperately we wanted to become martyrs. I wanted to die a martyr's death, not out of any amazing love for God, really. I just thought that a martyr's death would be the quickest way to attain the great rewards reserved in heaven. Well, my parents, they were always very, very dear to me. But I always found them to be polar opposites. Father was pious and rigid. Mother was lively and enchanted with romance novels which she hid from my father. I was just 12 years old when Mother died, and devastated by the loss. I remember on the day Mother died, I threw myself down in front of an image of the Virgin Mary, imploring her to become my mother. I was an unruly teenager. Having lost Mother and that religious zeal of my childhood, I was more interested in socializing than in praying. And Father, he did not know what to do with me. And I felt sentenced by his exacting religious standards. But the smartest thing later I understood that he did was send me to the Augustinian nuns to school when he saw I was losing my way. I needed the care of a woman. Well, at this time, I knew God was calling me. And yet, the glamours of the material world were calling me too. God gave me great peace, but the vanities of the world held me in chains. I was really only interested in wearing fine clothes and fine jewelry and fine perfumes and flirting with boys. My friends, they would come over and we would read romantic tales and try on each other's clothes and gossip. Now, if I can advise the parents here, I entreat you to take great care with whom your children converse with. Keep them close to home and to church. I know through experience that there is nothing like holy water that puts the devil to flight. I grew to accept convent life and even embrace it. Partly because of my growing religious zeal, but mostly because it was a lot less strict than my father. I eventually chose religious life for myself, obviously. And I entered the Carmelite convent when I was just 20 years old. Soon after making my final vows, I got very sick and suffered a seizure that left me in a coma for days. Later, I discovered that they thought I was dead and dug a grave for me. The doctors, they determined that it was malaria that caused the seizure and the horrific pain that followed. When I awoke, I was paralyzed for a few years. I honestly thought during this time that I must be so wicked that God was punishing me with this illness. I honestly just thought that I did not deserve God's love. And praying, it became such a challenge due to my own anxiety. You see, I have always felt that my intellect is so wild that it seems to be nothing but the frantic madman no one can tie down. You see, I find that our physical challenges in our lives are nothing compared to our interior battles. And my interior battles, I have to tell you, they challenged my relationships. I must admit that I was jealous that other people seemed to suffer more than did not seem to suffer as I did. Silly me. I honestly want to basically blame all of my bad behavior on my illness. In fact, one time I remember that I was in such horrific pain that I could not sleep for days. And I was suffering from a profound sadness. But during this time, God granted me the gift of mental prayer. Mental prayer, it is a type of prayer that invites one to love God through silent dialogue and meditating on God's face. This prayer, it helped me keep God's image present for long periods of time. I have to say that praying like this was very easy for me because you see, I have found that my imagination is so dull that I have trouble coming up with new theological thoughts or images. So mental prayer, it helped me look at God as if he were a friend with whom I could share my most intimate thoughts. And then God started appearing to me very vividly in visions. It is very difficult to explain these visions. But later I understood that this was God's way of asking me to love more deeply. But they're so very difficult to explain. They are shocking and painful and lovely all at once. Mostly, our Lord appears to me as risen. But one time, he came and he showed me his wounds. And another time, he appeared on the cross. And another time with a crown of thorns. Now, each time this happens, I am overwhelmed. But mostly, I feel this immense love fill me. And I know it is God's grace. One of my most prominent visions, it was when I saw in a seraph's hand a long spear of gold. And at the very tip of it seemed to be a little fire. And it appeared to me that he was piercing my heart and my very entrails. And when he withdrew it, he withdrew them as well and left me all on fire with this great love of God. I mean, the pain was so intense that it made me moan, and yet so surpassing was the sweetness of this pain that I could not wish to be rid of it. It was not a physical pain, but a spiritual pain, and I surrendered to it. You see, this is very difficult to explain. Another vision that I had was, it was 1577, and it prompted me to write a book. Now, I have never felt that I have had the wits nor the health for writing, but God was insistent that I write this spiritual guide for development. Well, the inspirational vision was of the soul as a crystal globe or a diamond in the shape of a stunning castle with 7 rooms or mansions. Well, I interpreted these as the journey through faith through 7 stages, ending with the greatest splendor, union with God. The palace, everything outside the palace limits was dark and foul. But the closer one got to the center, the brighter the light. It was magnificent. Many people do not understand these visions, and I have to be careful with whom I share them. You see, it was the time of the Spanish Inquisition when fear and suspicion were very common. Some people, they actually thought that I was possessed and needed to be exorcised. It was particularly alarming when my confessors did not believe me and were afraid to hear my confession. One of my confessors said, "You must be deluded by the devil. I demand that you bless yourself again and again each time you have a vision." This command was very, very disturbing because I honestly believed that these visions came from God. In fact, sometimes I am filled with such divine contemplation that my body spontaneously levitates. Now, I am not keen on these public displays. So, when I feel them coming on, I call on other nuns to sit on me to keep me from floating away. Yes. But the important thing when praying is not to think too much, but to love much and to do the type of prayer that stirs you to love. So, when this contemplation, I realized that, like I said, I had to be very careful with whom I shared these thoughts. I have always felt that prayer and contemplation needs to be tempered with action. So, at the age of 51, I proposed the foundation for a new convent for a discalced, which literally means barefoot, and the Reformed Carmelite order. Going back to the basics of contemplation, a simple life of poverty devoted to prayer. Well, I have to tell you that the Carmelite order offered far too many distractions for these nuns. There were excessive parties and many social visits. I know. And at this time, we women, we did not have many opportunities, and we entered the convent whether we had vocations or not. Some of the nuns, they would arrange their veils attractively and wear fine jewelry. And there was a steady stream of visitors in the parlor of the convent, and many of them were young men. Yes. Well, you may see that I am a very social person, but I knew that this type of entertainment was not appropriate for the convent. So, as I said, I proposed this foundation for a new convent for the discalced and Reformed Carmelite order. Well, there was so much opposition from the townspeople to the Carmelite provincial to my confessors. The papal nuncio, he called me a restless, disobedient gadabout who went about preaching and teaching as if she were a professor. It was exhausting. Oh, and it was a fight. However, I had a Franciscan friar. His name was Peter of Alcantara, on my side. He convinced the bishop to grant permission for my mission of reform. The success of the Carmelite order is in large part to his devotion, his confirmation, and his countenance. So then, soon after, I was given permission to open monasteries for men, and I persuaded one of my dear confidants, John, he was later known as John of the Cross, to convince and help me open up these monasteries. He and I forged a lasting relationship and a holy friendship. Well, once the template was set for the discalced Carmelites, over time we opened 17 convents and 15 monasteries. Oh, I know, right? As I think about my relationship with God, I like to call it a intimate sharing between friends. God and I can talk for hours. But it isn't always pleasant conversation. Mm-hmm. I remember one time I was setting out to open a convent, and it was cold and frightfully blustery. A big storm came up, and it overturned my carriage and threw me out onto the muddy grounds. Furious, I looked heavenward. Lord, if this is how you treat your friends, no wonder you don't have so many. I do not remember the Lord appearing to me that day. I look back on my life, and I know I have been vain and sinful. My soul is like a stubborn mule. But God never gave up on me. God always offered me opportunities to serve. And serve is what we are all called to do. For Christ has no body now on earth but ours. No hands but ours, no feet but ours. Ours are the eyes through which he looks out his own compassion to the world. Ours are the feet with which he goes about doing good. And ours are the hands with which he is to bless all now. Oh, I would like to invite all of you to turn to someone near you and bless them on the forehead. It doesn't matter if you're not Catholic, it does not matter. You turn, you give them the sign of the cross on the forehead. Please, go. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Please, do. Go. Do it. Come. Come, it's not that hard. Seriously, people. Oh. Lovely. Whew, I don't know about you, but I am tired and I need rest. But first, I must pray and maybe have a glass of wine. God bless you. Thank you. All right, so this is when I rip off my outfit because I can't stand this for very long. So, excuse me. And thank you. Oh my goodness, you guys are lovely. You even laughed, so that made me happy because she, I feel, is kind of a funny character, right? But I want to say thank you mostly to Dixie and Chris because look what they did, right? Look at this beautiful place that I got to perform for you guys in. So where are they? Where are my hosts? Host and hostess. Good, there they are. Thank you guys. And then I also, of course, have to thank all the people that have helped me with my lines because my goodness. Where's my husband, Dennis? Okay, so I did mess up, right? You heard that? Oh no, he's like, oh no, you didn't mess up. But I managed to bring it all back. Hopefully you guys didn't notice, but anyway. Okay, I'm taking it all off now. This is what I did at Crondale High School. Remember, Edie? Like, yeah, I was literally at the end of my monologue, and and some of them thought I was actually a nun. Some of the high schoolers, yeah, they did. They were like, "Oh, we thought you were a nun." I'm like, "Oh no." Anyway, so yeah, I know, like, yeah, they didn't. Some of them did. Though I performed for my son's class. Like, they were graduating during COVID, and I performed for their senior class. Anyway, okay, so thank you all for coming because what does an actor do? I mean, if I don't get to perform, it doesn't really mean much. It just kind of sits there. So, and because I do my own work, it can go for, many, many months and I don't get to show anyone my work. So thank you. Say again?
Loved your accent.
Oh. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, my friend. Yes, you are beautiful. So, yeah, that's actually probably one of the reasons why I chose St. Teresa, because I just love doing that accent. So, I don't want to belabor my Q&A or anything, but sometimes people have questions, and I want to honor that and just put it out there. If you guys have any thoughts, questions, yes. Oh, Courtney, yes. Please.
Where are you performing?
Oh, like, where do I perform? Okay. You're like, okay. Okay, so just in June, I went to Brooklyn and performed off Broadway. Yeah. a different monologue. I have 4, so that was a different monologue. And then before that was in Los Angeles at Mount St. Mary's University. So it tends to be a lot of, as you can imagine, religious folks. But I don't know. So here's a question for you guys. Now there's a big mix of folks here. Some that are maybe Catholic, maybe Christian, maybe not. Do you feel like this woman is of interest to people who are not Catholic? She's kind of cool, right? So, okay. So, yeah, question. Wait for the airplane. Yeah, paparazzi. Okay, go ahead.
So, Carmelite nuns,
Yes.
they started out in a whorehouse. Is that what I understood?
Well, honestly, I don't know if I'd go that far, Trish, but
It was on the border.
But honestly, yes. I mean, as you can imagine, I think a whorehouse is probably strong wording, but yes, there were abuses. Yeah, no, but that's very funny that you.
Actually, well, and then from moving from that
Uh-huh.
to the most austere, because there is still several monasteries.
Oh yeah. That don't go out. Yeah, but as you see, for Saint Teresa, she wanted it to be both. She wanted folks to have it all, to be able to get out in the world and do work and service, but also have a prayer life too. So yeah, so there's both, and not be a whore, which was probably top on her list, is what I would say. Yeah. Even though she was a social being. Okay, Amy. Yes.
Are those monasteries and are they still in existence?
Yes, there are. There's very few nuns left, though I'm sure you all know this. They dwindle because it's not a popular thing to do. And a lot of you probably know that my brother, speaking of religious life, was a priest for a good almost 20 years, and he ended up leaving because it's so challenging to be a priest or a nun in the Catholic Church, because they ask you to be celibate. And that, I think, is wrong. But anyway, so he's married.
I'm Episcopalian.
That's right, you're Episcopalian. It's Catholic life, yes. But my brother now is married and very happy. So, yes.
To answer your question, there is one of the most beautiful places in San Francisco. It's directly across from USF, and it's a Carmelite monastery of Cristo Rey. And it is, in terms of the interior, it is gorgeous. And there's a screen, and behind the screen is where the Carmelite nuns are.
And they're still there,
San Francisco,
right?
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
It's right on Parker.
This is in San Francisco,
and
Paul's talking about.
Hollister, whatever that is, right across from USF Church.
Yeah.
Or St. Ignatius Church.
St.
And
SI.
it truly is one of the most beautiful places to pray.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. Okay, anything else? Any other comments, questions, heckling? Jack?
How did she die?
How did she die?
Martyred.
She was not martyred. No, she was. I know. Damn it. I know. She wanted to be martyred, as you saw. Yeah, she's like, let's bring it on. And I have to apologize to Dash because I've been saying some bad words. I'm sorry, Dash. Yeah, but your mom's okay with that. Actually, Marin is right here. Wait, just wave. I know you're gonna be embarrassed, but Marin is the one that directed all of my monologues, all 4 of them. She helped me stage them. So, and she's here tonight with her daughter, Dash. So I just needed to say that. But yes. She died. She was ill, and I chose to present her not as a crippled / ill person. I mean, I could have done it that way, but I just chose not to. So, but yeah, she definitely died from her illness. I think she was in her 50s. Oh God. Sorry. Okay. Anyway. Yeah, I tried to read Interior Castle. The book that she wrote, it's very challenging. It's hard to read.
She has impact, 400 or 500 years after her death. Even in seminaries now, they teach courses in spirituality just on Teresa of Avila.
On Teresa of Avila,
And the
yeah.
Interior
Yeah, and the Interior Castle,
Yeah,
and
huge impact.
and the mental prayer, and yeah. So she's had a huge impact on prayer life, whatever, all that spiritual stuff. Yes. Well, good.
Beautiful job.
Thank you.
So now I want to know, who are the other people that you
Oh, my other monologues, thank you. Again, so when I wrote my first 3 monologues, which Teresa is one of, I was doing my master's in theology. I'm not really sure why, but I was, and I'm sure my husband wished I hadn't, because it took me 10 years. But anyway, I wrote for my thesis, St. Teresa, Ruth from the Old Testament, so we got a good Jewish lady, right? And then I did Dorothy Day, who was a convert. She's the one that started the movement in New York, and there's Dorothy Day houses all over the place for the homeless. She is a woman who fed many, many, many folks, and she wasn't even Catholic. And she is up for sainthood, even though she had an abortion, which I also talk about in my monologue. Like, I put it all out there, yeah. So that's huge, as you can imagine, for the Catholic Church to even be considering that. But yeah, and then my other one is Mother St. John Fontbonne, who is the founder of the Order of the Sisters of St. Joseph. And Carondelet High School, where Edie, over here, wave Edie, she is the campus minister there. That's who founded the Carondelet Order, and she's a big cheese. So I done her. That's the one I did in New York. Brooklyn. But you know, the funny thing though, when I know some of you already know this, but when I was performing my monologue in Brooklyn, I have a friend who you may know. Her name's Darcy Carden. She was on The Good Place with Ted Danson and Kristen Bell. She played the Siri character, Janet. Anyway, she was on Broadway at that same exact time, and I got to see her perform. So she was on Broadway, I was on Brooklyn, but that's okay. All right, anything else? We don't have to keep going because you guys can drink and eat and have fun. Any other thoughts? Yes.
I'm wondering, what is it about these 4 women that draws you in?
So Edie said, what is it about these 4 women that draws me in? They're badass, right? I mean, they're badass. They are out of their time. I mean, all 4 of them, they just stood up. They stood up to patriarchy. They stood up to the, this really, like Teresa says about her father. You know, her father was so exacting in his religious standard. All of these women stood up too, and they're loyal, and they have this incredible faith. And it doesn't matter if you believe in God or not, but if you have faith in something, I mean, that is badass, right? Because it draws you, it motivates you to do whatever it is that you want to do, whether it's saving the world or, I don't know, acting in front of a bunch of people out here by a pool. But you know what I mean? And everything we do, it motivates us to move forward.
How long did it take you to write?
This one? Honestly, probably a couple of months. I mean, my process has been is to read everything I can on all of it, and then just start to lift pieces. And like the very end, Christ has no body on now on earth, but yours. I mean, they're her words. I've lifted, and because they're just too important, you have to have it. So, yeah, but it does. It takes a long time, and then memorizing the beasts, and then acting. Anyway, yeah, but it's fine. Obviously,
That's
enjoy
a
it.
wonderful way to end this.
Okay.
Absolutely.
There we go. Now have some more wine, and thank Dixie and Chris. And please feel free to stay. Thank you, darling. I'll have some wine too, yeah. Yeah. Yes. Wait, Dixie has something to say. Come on up.
We're going to put a little jar by the Virgin Mary. It's not for us. Do not feel compelled, but if anybody's so inclined, Tiffany would love to.
Okay, because I'm one of those struggling actors. Like my son says, why are you not Darcy Carden that made it on The Good Place? I'm like, I don't know, honey. That's just not what happened. Anyway, thank you. Thank you. So the Virgin Mary will be holding a jar for... The Virgin Mary does do Venmo. Oh my God, you're so freaking hilarious. That's my friend Paul Martin. Yes, Venmo. I'm Tiffany Hoover too, I think. Thank you.